Imagine, like, taking the wealth of just one man, right, and handing $1 million check to every single unemployed young person in Britain.
Right. Which is just a massive mental image.
Yeah, it really is. And then contrast that. Imagine being told that to clear the social housing wait list in that exact same country, you'd have to wait until, like, the year 2135.
Wow. Yeah, it's staggering.
It is. Anyway, welcome to today's deep dive. Today, we are exploring a very specific, fiercely sharp snapshot of the world from late June 2026.
Yes, we are.
Our grounding material is issue 1372 of an e-paper called The Socialist. And our mission today is to really unpack the anatomy of modern political and economic frustration exactly as it's presented by the writers of this publication.
And before we get too deep into the weeds here, let's just set some parameters for what you, the listener, are about to hear.
Good idea.
The sources we're analyzing today contain some highly politically charged left-wing socialist analysis. And to be totally clear, we are not taking sides here.
Right. No endorsements from us.
Exactly. We aren't endorsing these specific viewpoints. Our role as your guides today is just to impartially report on the arguments, the data, and, the frameworks contained within the original source material. We're just here to understand exactly how this specific movement diagnoses the crises of the modern world.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with that absolutely jarring contrast I mentioned at the top. Because the writers at The Socialist are looking at a global economy that has just fundamentally bifurcated.
Oh, completely split in two.
Yeah. By mid-2026, the world has officially crowned its first trillionaire, Elon Musk. And at the exact same time, the combined wealth of the world's billionaires has surged by this incomprehensible $8 trillion. And that's just since 2020.
Right. And to give that number some physical weight, that $8 trillion increase alone is roughly 8 times Musk's total unprecedented net worth.
Which is just wild.
It is. What the publication is documenting here is a historical concentration of capital.
Right. And they use this incredibly striking mathematical point to really drive the frustration home. They argue that if you took Musk's wealth and distributed it to the roughly 1 million unemployed young people in Britain, they would each get that $1 million payout.
$1 million each. Just from one person's wealth.
Exactly. And they also point out that this level of hoarded wealth could build, I think it was 4 million council homes, or fund the entire National Health Service for 5 years outright.
Yeah, 5 full years.
But wait, I have to stop you there. Because dividing $1 trillion among unemployed kids makes for a really great headline, sure, but that's liquidating an entire company.
Right, right.
It's not like liquid cash sitting in a giant vault like Scrooge McDuck. So doesn't the publication lose a bit of credibility by using such cartoonish math to make an economic point?
Well, it is definitely a rhetorical device. They aren't really using it as a literal policy proposal. What's fascinating here is that the publication uses these extremes deliberately to establish their foundational argument about system design.
Oh, okay. So it's about the system itself.
Exactly. They aren't merely complaining that one tech CEO has too much money. They're using these figures to argue that capitalism is inherently designed to fail the vast majority of people.
Right.
By juxtaposing a trillionaire with a 119-year wait list for basic housing, which, by the way, is a real figure cited from a shelter report, they're really validating the anger felt by the working class.
Because the reality on the ground is grim. They note that food prices are estimated to be 50% higher than they were 5 years ago.
50%. Think about your grocery bill.
Seriously. And the energy cap is rising another 13% in July. That slaps another 300 pounds onto average household bills, all while council taxes are being hiked too.
Exactly. The publication frames this not as a glitch or, an accident in the economic system, but as the system working exactly as it was intended to. It's ruthlessly extracting wealth from the bottom to funnel it to the very top.
Which brings up an inevitable question, right? When the economic pressure at the bottom becomes this crushing, when you literally cannot afford to turn your heating on or put a roof over your head, you naturally expect the political party historically tied to the working class to step in.
You'd think so, yeah.
But instead, the source delivers this blistering, just unrelenting critique of Keir Starmer's Labour government.
And this critique is really central to understanding the anger driving this publication. They argue that the modern Labour Party has fundamentally abandoned the working class in order to appease corporate interests and maintain market stability.
And the examples they pulled to support this are just incredibly vivid. Like, they highlight a recent bin strike in Birmingham.
Right, the Birmingham Council.
Yeah. Now, Birmingham is run by a Labour council. But instead of supporting the workers, that council pushed through salary cuts of up to £8,000 a year per worker.
£8,000 is huge for a sanitation worker.
It's devastating. And the paper alleges that Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner actually visited the so-called scab workers to offer support while completely ignoring the official picket lines outside.
Wow.
Furthermore, Chancellor Rachel Reeves reportedly dismissed the striking workers as lazy.
It's a localized crisis, sure, but the publication links it directly to national betrayals.
Right.
Like, look at how they cover Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester.
Right. He's often touted as a potential left-leaning challenger within the party, right?
Exactly. And Burnham had previously championed the WASI women, the women against state pension inequality.
Right. And for those who aren't familiar, these are millions of women who work their entire lives expecting to retire at age 60, only to have the government quietly move the goalposts and raise their pension age to 66.
Which plunged hundreds of thousands of women into sudden poverty.
Yeah, it's an awful situation.
Precisely. And Burnham had pledged to provide a £10 billion compensation package for them. But the publication highlights that he abruptly dropped that massive financial pledge, and instead, he hinted at offering them concessionary bus rates.
Wait, from $10 billion in restitution to a discounted bus pass?
Yeah, that's the pivot they're highlighting.
That is a staggering pivot. And then you add in what the source describes as outright authoritarianism. The Labor government reportedly reversed a high court ruling to ban the protest group Palestine Action.
Right, making expressions of support for them punishable by up to 14 years in prison.
14 years. And they've announced a total social media ban for anyone under 16 by 2027.
But, let's look at the mechanics of this. Why would a Labor government, assuming they actually want to be reelected by their base, impose such brutal austerity and strict crackdowns?
Well, this is where we have to look at the mechanics of state finance. When a government wants to borrow money to fund public services, the bond markets essentially dictate the terms.
Okay, the bond markets. Yeah. In a global capitalist framework, bond markets demand what they call fiscal responsibility, which translates almost universally to low public spending and suppressed wages. The publication's perspective is that if labor promises too much to the workers, well, the bond investors panic, interest rates spike, and the economy stalls.
So because labor has committed to playing within the rules of capitalism, they are fundamentally trapped by the bond markets.
Exactly. The socialist view presented here is that operating within a capitalist framework inevitably demands austerity. The market requires the suppression of worker demands to maintain corporate profit margins.
Aye.
Therefore, to the writers of this e-paper, these actions by labor aren't just pragmatic policy missteps. They are a structural inevitability. It's systemic betrayal.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the traditional party of the workers has abandoned the field to satisfy bond markets, a massive political vacuum opens up. And nature abhors a vacuum.
It certainly does.
Someone is going to step in to capture that working class anger. And according to this publication, the force stepping into that void is the far right.
Specifically, Nigel Farage and the Reform UK party.
The numbers in the source are wild. They note that Reform UK is heavily courting trade unions. And according to polling data, they are actually tying with labor for support within massive organizations like Unite, the GMB, and the UCU, which is the University and College Union.
Right, tying with labor in union polls.
Yeah, and Reform now has full control of 23 local councils. But the publication insists Farage is playing a massive double game here.
They do. They point out that while he produces public videos positioning himself as the champion of the disenfranchised worker, he's simultaneously giving exclusive, paywalled interviews to papers like The Times.
Reassuring wealthy capitalists.
Exactly. Reassuring them that a reform government would never provoke strikes or challenge the economic status quo.
It's like a magician's misdirection. The publication is arguing that while the audience is watching Farage's right hand point aggressively at immigration, his left hand is quietly shaking hands with corporate executives in the dark.
That's a great way to put it. And this high-level political maneuvering is having devastating, violent consequences on the streets. The source details some horrifying racist mob violence that recently erupted in Belfast and Derry.
Fueled heavily by far-right organizing.
Yeah.
And the paper explicitly notes, fanned by social media algorithms and posts from Elon Musk himself.
Yes.
Gangs actively targeted immigrant health workers and transport staff. A bus driver was physically forced off his vehicle. There was a brutal knife attack in North Belfast. But, and this is a big but, the source also highlights a massive, highly organized counter-movement from the working class.
Right. The trade unions didn't wait for politicians to act. They mobilized instantly. The PSA, the Northern Ireland Public Service Alliance, which represents thousands of civil servants and public workers, led major lunchtime walkouts and rallies right outside the hospitals.
Thousands gathered at Belfast City Hall. Union leaders essentially told the city, if the attacks on our members don't stop, we will shut down this entire place.
A direct threat to halt the city.
Exactly. And the pushback is happening in England, too. In Brighton, a planned far-right march of about 300 people was entirely overwhelmed when an estimated 4,000 counter-protesters showed up.
4,000?
And they didn't just yell. They turned it into a carnival against fascism, complete with a live DJ set by Fatboy Slim.
Which is just incredible imagery.
It is. And in Sheffield, a far-right group called Raise the Colours was similarly outnumbered by anti-racist coalitions and then kettled by the police, meaning they were physically boxed into a small, contained area.
The tactical shift here is crucial, though. By framing the counter-protest as a carnival, organizers demilitarize the optics of the event.
Oh, that makes sense.
It strips the far right of the intimidating militant aura they really rely on, and instead it makes them look entirely ridiculous and small.
But looking at the broader messaging, you have a right-wing millionaire in Nigel Farage and a tech trillionaire in Elon Musk successfully capturing the attention of the very working class this publication says they are exploiting.
Right.
Why on earth is their messaging taking root? It's like foxes offering to guard the henhouse.
Well, because the pain is real, and the far right provides an immediate, tangible scapegoat. The publication's analysis is that racism and anti-immigrant rhetoric are classic divide-and-rule tactics deployed by the economic elite.
Okay.
When your local library closes, when the housing waitlist is over a century long, and when your grocery bill doubles, the elite need you to look anywhere but up.
So they point the finger at the immigrant arriving on a boat, rather than the billionaire hoarding wealth in an offshore account.
Exactly. It works because the poverty and anger of the working class are immediate and visceral. The far right offers a highly visible target to blame, whereas a systemic critique of global macroeconomic frameworks is, well, it's just much harder to conceptualize and fight against.
And this street-level battle for the soul of the working class is now translating directly into boardroom-level civil wars within the trade unions themselves, because the members are demanding radical action, and the leadership is stuck playing politics.
The internal fracturing is profound. Major unions, including GMB, Unison, Prospect, and the RMT Transport Union, are at their annual conferences actively debating breaking their financial and political ties with the Labour Party entirely.
Unite the Union, one of the biggest players in the country. They already pulled the trigger. They cut their financial contribution by £600,000.
Which is massive.
It really is. And we need to understand the mechanism of that cut. That isn't just some ceremonial gesture. That £600,000 pays for campaign literature, it pays for ground organizers, it pays for the get-out-the-vote operations that political parties rely on to win swing districts.
Right.
By pulling that funding, the unions are actively crippling labor's ground game.
And they're having serious discussions about redirecting that exact infrastructure to fund a brand new independent workers' party. And this desire for independence is causing total chaos internally. Look at the PCS. The Public and Commercial Services Union, which represents civil servants.
Oh, the Zoom walkout.
Yes.
The source describes a literal Zoom walkout. The General Secretary of the union, Fran Heathcote, allegedly shut down a legally courted National Executive Committee meeting, specifically to obstruct a campaign pushing for a 10% pay rise and an £18 minimum wage.
She just ended the call.
She openly clashed with the union's own democratically elected president. It's wild to think that a union leadership, people whose entire job is to facilitate and amplify worker voices, are literally hitting the end meeting for all button on their own members just to stop a vote from happening.
It highlights a massive growing disconnect. You have a union leadership class that often advocates for partnership and polite negotiation with employers and the government, standing in direct opposition to a rank-and-file membership that is drowning in the cost of living crisis and demanding radical, immediate action.
And while the unions are fighting these internal civil wars over wages, the corporate ground under their feet is shifting entirely. The companies they are fighting are already looking past human wages.
Oh, absolutely.
The source notes that BT, the telecommunications giant, is cutting 55,000 jobs by the year 2030, explicitly citing AI efficiency. Meanwhile, The CEO of BT, Alison Kirkby, just saw her pay package double to £5.6 million.
Double the pay, thousands of fewer workers.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? When we look at artificial intelligence through the lens of this publication, we have to ask about the mechanism of its deployment. Is AI being used as a tool to lighten the worker's load, to reduce drudgery? Or is it a bulldozer being used to pave over tens of thousands of salaries so executives can capture the surplus?
Well, the socialist perspective on AI presented here is actually highly nuanced. They don't view artificial intelligence or algorithms as inherently evil. Technology is just a tool. The core defining issue is ownership.
Who holds the keys to the algorithm, basically?
Precisely. They argue that under a democratically controlled socialist system, the massive productivity gains of AI would be utilized to reduce the human work week.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You could work fewer hours, eliminate repetitive drudgery, and maintain your full salary, fundamentally improving your quality of life. But under the current capitalist ownership model, AI is strictly a mechanism to aggressively cut labor costs, shed jobs, and funnel those saved wages directly into executive bonuses and shareholder dividends, which is the exact dynamic playing out at BT.
And this relentless pursuit of profit over human welfare isn't just a domestic issue confined to UK boardrooms either. The writers of The Socialist take these exact same capitalist dynamics and trace them across the globe.
The international scope of their critique is incredibly broad. They connect seemingly disparate global crises back to the exact same root cause.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source demands that we trace the supply chain. They take us from the high-tech AI job cuts in London straight to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is currently suffering through its 40th outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus.
Number 40.
And the publication directly links this terrifying health crisis to global capitalism.
They map out the mechanism of the outbreak really clearly. The DRC has an estimated $25 trillion worth of untapped minerals underground.
25 trillion.
Yeah, specifically cobalt and coltan, which are absolutely essential for manufacturing smartphones, electric vehicles, and AI hardware. The global demand for these tech products drives rapid, aggressive corporate deforestation.
And when you bulldoze the forests to build the mines, you destroy the natural habitats of virus-carrying wildlife, like bats.
Right.
You force these animals into much closer, unprecedented contact with human populations, creating the exact biological conditions necessary for a viral spillover event like Ebola.
Exactly. And furthermore, just as the risk of these outbreaks is mathematically increasing due to resource extraction, the global health aid designed to manage them is being actively dismantled by the same political systems.
The source points out that the U.S. drastically cut funding to USAID. They note that Donald Trump appointed Elon Musk to head a Department of Government Efficiency, specifically to take a chainsaw to federal budgets. That move entirely ended Ebola preparation funding in the DRC.
Just cut it entirely.
And the UK Labour government isn't spared either. They slashed their overseas aid budget down to just 0.3% of GDP. When you hold your smartphone in your hand today, do you ever think about the global supply chain of health and human cost? The deforestation, the displaced communities, the deadly disease in the Congo that went into manufacturing the battery? Because this e-paper is demanding that you trace that line.
And they apply this exact same lens to state repression globally. They highlight the situation in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. A coalition of civil society groups fighting inflation, known as the Joint Awami Action Committee, or JAC, was officially banned under anti-terror legislation.
Right, and during those sweeping cost-of-living protests there, a demonstrator named Shazaib Habibi was killed, which subsequently sparked a 3,000-strong solidarity demonstration in central London.
They even touch on the exploitation of migrant care workers right inside the UK. These workers are protesting against new government rules that extend their visa settlement times to 10 or 15 years.
Right, and the mechanism of exploitation there is that if your visa is tied to a specific private employer for 15 years, you are practically indentured. You cannot speak out against wage theft or abuse without risking immediate deportation.
It is a masterful piece of structural editing by the publication. I mean, they can take a story about a local council implementing austerity to close a small library in Wales, where a councillor literally told residents, if you choose to live down a farm track, that's your choice. And they seamlessly weave that hyperlocal austerity into the exact same systemic framework as an Ebola outbreak in the Congo, state violence in Kashmir, and a multi-million-pound CEO bonus in London.
Yeah.
They view all of these events as interconnected symptoms of a single global system that inherently prioritizes capital extraction over human life.
We have covered a truly massive amount of ground today. We've journeyed through a vivid, intense, and highly critical snapshot of June 2026. We've examined a world where extreme, unimaginable wealth, deep political disillusionment, violent street-level protests, internal union rebellions, and global health crises are all analyzed through a fiercely socialist lens. We've unpacked the mathematical rhetoric of trillionaires juxtaposed against a housing wait list that won't clear until the 22nd century.
And as a final reminder, while we have spent this time exploring these arguments and historical narratives deeply, our aim has been to serve as an impartial guide to the source material provided. Our goal is to illuminate exactly how this specific ideological movement analyzes, diagnoses, and responds to the massive systemic pressures of the world around them. Understanding the mechanics of these perspectives is really vital to comprehending the broader shifting political landscape.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder on your own. Throughout this publication, there is a heavy recurring advocacy for building a traditional new mass workers' party to combat all of these immense global issues. They're essentially advocating for a 20th century style political organization.
Right.
But we live in an era where social media algorithms dictate our reality, where AI acts as a corporate bulldozer, reshaping entire industries overnight, and where we all exist in totally fragmented, highly personalized digital echo chambers. So, is a traditional, localized political party structure even capable of uniting a deeply fractured working class today? Or will the next major political shift, the real pushback against this economic disparity, have to take an entirely new, digitized form that we haven't even conceptualized yet? Think about those two elevators we discussed at the very start of our deep dive. One is rocketing to the penthouse, while the other is stuck in the basement with the cables fraying. If the people stuck in the basement finally decide they want to fix the building, maybe they don't need to form a new committee. Maybe they need an entirely new blueprint. Until next time.